All right. Our next witness, please.
Sorry, Judge.
No problem.
The state calls Tara Ransom.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please raise your right hand and be sworn.
Do you swear and affirm the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I just wanted to check. Can you please tell the court reporter your full name and how you spell it?
My name is Tara Ransom. That's spelled T-A-R-A-R-A-N-S-O-M.
Ms. Ransom, there have been some other representatives from the crime laboratory who have already testified, so I'm going to try to not do the same questions more than once. So I'll try to keep them confined to your qualifications, okay? Can you tell us where you work?
I'm employed by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation at the Coastal Regional Crime Laboratory in Pooler, Georgia.
And how long have you worked there?
I've been employed with the GBI since February 1st of 2010, so approximately 15 and a half years now.
And what is your occupation at the GBI Crime Lab?
I am a forensic biologist. My job involves examining evidence for the presence of biological fluids, developing any DNA profiles that are present, and interpreting the results.
And have you always held that same position while at the crime lab?
I have.
Have you always worked at the one in this region at the Coastal Crime Laboratory in Pooler?
Yes.
So that entire experience was at the same facility?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury your educational background concerning that position?
I graduated from Eastern Washington University with a Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry and Biochemistry with an emphasis in Forensic Science. I graduated from the University of Florida with a Master's of Science in Pharmacology with an emphasis in Forensic DNA and Serology. I completed an in-house training program with the GBI. The in-house training program involved processing mock samples, doing literature review, and taking both written and oral examinations. I am also certified by the American Board of Criminalistics. This is an independent agency that certifies forensic scientists.
And did you get that training prior to starting as a forensic biologist and DNA analyst at the crime laboratory?
I was hired as a forensic biologist and received on-the-job training before entering into casework.
Okay. And do you continue to do trainings while you maintain your position?
Yes, we do yearly continuing education.
And is that in addition to peer review and counseled sessions with supervisors?
Yes.
So that would be, you do both of those things?
Correct.
Thank you. And have you received any withdrawn? Can you describe your primary roles as a forensic biologist and analyst in what you specifically do at the crime lab?
As I said, as a forensic biologist, my job involves examining evidence for the presence of biological fluids. If biological fluids are present, then I send the case forward for DNA testing.
And do you sometimes do that DNA testing yourself?
Yes.
And what types of fluids do you generally work with?
At the GBI Crime Lab, we test for blood, semen, and saliva.
Are you trained in preserving and handling biological samples?
Yes.
How did you receive that training?
The training was part of that in-house training that we did and that we had to pass before entering into independent casework.
And are there protocols or guidelines in place that are regularly updated to ensure that you stay current with being able to properly handle those specimens?
Yes, we take a competency test before entering into casework to ensure that we are doing all procedures correctly. We also do proficiency tests twice a year in order to ensure that we are continuing to maintain our competency in the field.
What about the instruments at the lab that you use? Are there any specialized tests to ensure that they're properly calibrated and working accurately?
Yes, all instruments undergo regular maintenance and testing to ensure that they are working correctly before they're put into use.
And the crime laboratory in Pooler, the Coastal Crime Lab, was that accredited when you were working there on this case?
Yes,
Is it still accredited today?
yes,
Do you engage in quality assurance and quality control procedures in the laboratory concerning your cases still to this day?
yes,
And were those procedures in place when you were engaged in this case?
yes,
We've talked some about how to ensure that a biological sample was ripe or appropriate for testing. If you were to receive a sample that was not in a condition that was appropriate for testing, what would you do?
Could you clarify your question, please?
Sure. If you found that a sample was insufficient, meaning there wasn't enough of a sample to analyze, how would you document that?
So all samples are tested in order to determine whether or not there is a sufficient amount of either bodily fluid or DNA present. So within our reporting results, you would see a result saying that either it indicated a biological fluid, it failed to reveal a biological fluid, or it was inconclusive for the presence of a biological fluid.
Is that something you can tell with the naked eye?
No.
Is that something you actually test then to determine?
Yes.
Okay, so if a sample were to arrive at the laboratory in a condition that the chain of custody appeared to be intact, would you then conduct that test?
Yes.
If the chain of custody did not appear to be intact, what would you do?
I cannot testify to an item's chain of custody prior to it coming into the lab. When the item enters the lab, we examine it in order to determine, is the packaging sealed? Does it appear that it's been tampered with in any way? As long as the item is sealed and does not appear to be tampered with, then we proceed with testing, regardless of what the chain of custody was prior to that moment in time.
What I'm asking is if something came to you and it looked like it wasn't properly sealed or it didn't have the correct markings, what would you do in that case?
We would attempt to rectify the situation, whether it was that it needed a seal. We'd reach out to the agency and have them come back in and relabel an item or repackage it and reseal it to meet our standards.
And in this case, there weren't any problems with the receipt of the materials, correct?
Correct.
As a result, were you asked to perform some analysis in conjunction with samples received for this case?
Yes.
Before I get there, have you ever testified before as an expert?
Yes.
And approximately how many times have you testified?
I've testified over 100 times.
And in what fields?
I've testified in forensic biology, so body fluid identification and DNA testing.
Okay. And how many times you said? About 100?
A little over 100 times.
Okay. Is that here in the state of Georgia?
Within the state of Georgia and one time in North Carolina.
Okay. And have you ever been denied status as an expert in the field of forensic biology or DNA analysis?
No.
At this time, Your Honor, I would seek to tender Ms. Ransom as an expert in the field of forensic biology and DNA analysis.
Any objection?
No objection.
Well, I think she's so qualified, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, with connection with this case, you indicated that you had reviewed certain materials. Is that right?
Correct.
And can you tell the jury, did you prepare reports in conjunction with those analyses that you performed?
I did.
Your Honor, I'm showing counsel exhibits marked 1.72, 73, and 74, which he has previously received, but just so he knows what I'm referring to.
What were those numbers again, please?
1.72, 73, and 74. Would it be fair to say that you handled various steps in the process of your analysis?
Yes.
Okay. And during the course of analysis of a DNA sample, I'm going to show you the physical reports that I have and the materials. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll start first with your reports. I'm showing you 1.72, 3, and 4. Do you recognize those reports?
Yes, these are the 2 blood examination reports and 1 DNA typing report that I issued for this case.
What's the difference between DNA typing and the secondary report you just referred to?
The blood examination reports were issued prior to the DNA typing report. During that testing, I examined evidence items for the presence of blood, and if they indicated the presence of blood, then I sent them forward for DNA testing. So then a DNA typing report was issued.
If you had not found blood, what would have been your course of action?
If blood was not found, then a blood examination report would have been issued stating that the evidence items failed to reveal the presence of blood, and no DNA testing would have been performed.
Would that have concluded your testing at that stage then?
Yes.
So when I was talking about steps, did the testing reveal the presence of blood and ultimately require you to pass that along for a secondary set of tests?
Yes, the blood examination reports did indicate the need for a DNA testing report.
Okay. And I'm going to go through these samples with you, so my apologies while I affix stickers to these. I'm going to ask you to also tell us if those reports that are in your hand, can you tell if those are the reports that you yourself generated?
Yes, they are.
How can you tell?
The reports have the DOFS case number, Department of Forensic Science case number, that was issued for this case, as well as my signature block, and the date that I had issued these reports.
Are those a duplicate of the original reports that were generated by you?
Yes, they are.
And are there any changes to them, or are those the actual reports you created?
These are the actual reports.
Your Honor, I would seek to tender those exhibits being 172, 1.72, 1.73, and 1.74.
Any objection? No objection. They are to be.
Thank you, Your Honor. And now, with respect to the samples themselves, can you explain to the jury what a cutting is?
Cutting is generally cutting from a larger piece of fabric, such as clothing, a sheet, any sort of fabric that was submitted into the lab for testing.
And other than for a buccal swab, can you tell the jury what a swabbing refers to when it's not referencing a cheek sample?
So a swabbing is simply a cotton swab that was used to sample any sort of presumed biological fluid from a scene.
Then how would you get that off of a dried substance, for example?
Generally, the way the swabs are collected is that the swab is wet down with sterile water and then applied to the dried stain.
And do you then literally swab to collect some of that sample?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm now going to show you what has been marked as states 1.75, 76, 77, 78. I'm also handing her 1.80, 81, 82, and 83, and showing them to counsel first. I'm going to start with the bags 1.75 through 1.79. Do you recognize those items?
I do.
When you create a report, do you document the report in a fashion to be able to subsequently recall which sample you received?
Yes, when evidence is submitted into a crime lab, it's given an item number. So the report will list all the items that were tested, as well as the reporting statements will reference the item number and the evidence that was tested.
Is it fair to say that sometimes there's many samples on a single case?
Correct.
And in this case, would it be fair to say there were more than one sample?
Yes, there were several samples.
Okay. And when you document those in the report, do you reference how they were received as well as how you document them yourself inside of the laboratory?
Yes.
Do they get individual item numbers for each submission?
Yes.
And is that documented on the report that you generate?
Yes.
Does that allow you to subsequently be able to be here in court and testify about what those particular items were?
Yes.
And is that documented on the reports that you have in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm now going to ask you, are there initials on those exhibits you're looking at right now that you recognize?
Yes.
And what are those?
So the ways that I recognize this evidence is as referenced. There is my initials and date of the evidence when I closed it back up after I was finished testing. As well as when evidence enters the laboratory, we place a barcode on it. We maintain an electronic chain of custody. This barcode lists the Department of Forensic Science case number and the item number.
And are all of those in the same or similar condition to when you finished up your analysis in conjunction with this case?
Yes.
Do you recognize each of those 5 bags as in that condition?
Yes.
At this time, I seek to tender States Exhibits 1.72, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
I think the first 3 have already been admitted,
Yeah.
but
My apologies, Your Honor.
75 and 6.
Thank
No
you.
objection to 7, 5, and
All
7.
right, they're admitted.
And may I? Thank you. Inside of each of these, if I may publish,
Yes, ma'am.
would it be fair to say that there are physical swabs inside of each of these that contain biological evidence?
Which item numbers were those again?
Here, I'll give them back to you. My
Thank you.
apologies.
Yes.
I did not mean to confuse you.
Each of these does contain swabs.
And when I say biological evidence, would it be fair to say that blood is biological evidence?
Yes, it is.
As a general rule in court, would you prefer I not reopen biological samples?
It would probably be preferred.
Okay. And the reason I ask you that is this is not a sterile environment, right?
Correct. If evidence was opened in a non-sterile environment, then it could not be tested again in the future.
Okay. So those swabs, though, have they already been tested?
Yes, I tested them during both the blood examination and sent them forward to DNA testing.
Okay. So with respect to those 5 samples, do you know where those samples are from?
The items were listed, States Exhibit 1.76, 1.75, 1.77, and 1.78 were listed as coming from a living room floor, and States Exhibit 1.79 was from a living room wall.
And were you able to do a blood test on each of those swabs and the cuttings to determine if blood was present on each of those 5 swabs?
Yes.
And was there?
Yes, chemical examination of the floor swabbings and the den wall swabbing indicated the presence of blood.
So all of them had blood?
Correct.
Thank you. Now I'm showing you 1.81, 1.82, 1.83, and my apologies, 1.80 first. Do you recognize these 4 exhibits?
Yes.
What do you recognize those to be?
These exhibits are cuttings or swabbings that I took from the larger evidence items during my blood examination testing.
And did those cover different samples than what you just described as the floor and the wall blood swabs?
Yes.
What areas or what materials were you testing in those samples?
States Exhibit 1.81 was cutting from clothing, namely panties and 2 tops. States Exhibit 1.82 was cutting from a futon mattress padding. States Exhibit 1.83 was cutting from a futon mattress cover. And States Exhibit 1.80 was swabs of a blood stain from a container, contact DNA swabs from container handles, swab of a blood stain from a container, contact DNA swabs from the container handles, a general swab of a blood stain from a knife blade, contact DNA swabs from the knife handle and sheath.
And so you described earlier that when you receive a sample, would it be fair to say one of your first tests is to determine if there's actually DNA available to test? Or do you start with blood? What do you start with?
It depends on the case circumstances. If there's both a request for contact DNA, which could be from someone handling an object, as well as biological fluids, We perform bulk testing. I would look at an item, test it for the presence of blood, and regardless of whether or not I found blood, I would go ahead and test certain areas of the item for contact DNA.
So it's possible to have no blood present, but DNA present.
Correct.
Is it also possible that the blood itself is the DNA?
Yes.
Okay. So in this case, did you ultimately test the substances that you just described for the jury in those additional exhibits?
I did.
Do you recognize those exhibits in their condition to have any of those indicative markings you've already described for us?
Yes, they all have the case barcode as well as my evidence seals on them.
At this time, I would seek to tender those exhibits as in evidence at this time.
Which specific exhibits are those exhibits?
This is exhibit 1.80, 1.81, 1.82, and 1.83.
Any objection?
No objection to those. I will note that 1.77, 1.78, 1.79 have not been tendered as exhibits.
I have not.
My apologies. Are all of them in the same or substantially the same condition with those markings that you've described?
Yes.
I would seek to tender them all, Your Honor.
And all includes 1.77, 1.78, and 1.79, correct?
Yes.
No objection.
All right, they're admitted.
So if you could, can you tell the jury, when you receive an item of clothing that may be stained with blood, what do you do with it?
So during a blood examination, I first look at the evidence item to determine if there is an observed reddish-brown stain present that would be indicative of blood. I then take a small sampling of that stain, be it a swab with sterile water, as I previously described, or a small cutting of the stain, and I apply chemicals to it. We perform 2 different tests for blood at the GBI Crime Lab. These tests are color change tests. The chemicals start out colorless, and in the presence of blood, they will change to an expected color. One chemical changes from colorless to pink, and one changes from colorless to green. So if both of these chemicals change their expected colors of pink and green, then that would indicate the presence of blood. If only one of the chemicals changed to its expected color, that would be an inconclusive result. And if both chemicals stayed colorless, then it would fail to reveal the presence of blood.
And once you have the analysis, I believe you testified that it is blood, that's when you may submit it on for further analysis?
Correct.
Okay. If I may have those laboratory reports, please. Thank you. I'm going to go in the sequence of your testing. Can you see that on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the members of the jury, on the far left margin here, do you see those numbers, 62, 62A, B, C, all of that?
Yes.
Would that be your documentation of those item numbers that you previously described to the jury?
Yes.
And is that your way of documenting this for your testimony as well?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jury which items specifically you tested for blood and which ones of those had a positive result for blood?
So in this case report, I tested DOFS item 34, a knife, and item 36, which was clothing from a plastic bag, which included 36A, panties, 36B, a piece of a top, 36C, a piece of a shirt, 36D, a piece of a top. I also tested DOFS item 37, a gray storage container without a lid. DOFS item 38, a black storage container without a lid. And DOFS item 39, a gray lid.
Okay. And which of those items that you just described had the presence of blood on them?
Chemical examination of the panties, item 36A, the top, item 36B, the t-shirt, item 36C, the top, item 36D, the gray storage container, item 37, and the black storage container, item 38, indicated the presence of blood. And chemical examination of the general swabbings conducted on the knife blade, item 34, indicated the presence of blood. Chemical examination of the stains on the gray lid, item 39, failed to reveal the presence of blood.
So the only item that didn't show the presence of blood was that gray lid?
Correct.
Okay. And the totes themselves, you indicated you tested the gray tote and the black tote both, correct?
Correct.
And both of those appeared, or through your testing, demonstrated the presence of blood?
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell the jury on a tote, and you could pass me 2 of the gloves over there.
Medium or large?
It doesn't matter. They're both big on me. Your Honor, I am referring to states 1.6 and 1.5. May she step down, Your Honor?
Sure.
Are there notes on here as to the exhibits?
Yes. When evidence is submitted to the lab, we need the evidence item to be identified with the agency case number, and contents of the item.
And would you be able to determine if this was the same exhibit that you tested, being a black or a gray tote, by looking at all of the markings on this exhibit?
Yes.
And are they, in fact, and I'm pointing to 1.5 and now additionally to 1.6?
Yes, these are the items that I tested.
Okay, and in the form of testing, you referenced a swab, is that correct?
Correct.
And did you swab these specific totes?
Yes.
I'm going to pull out 1.5. Would it be fair to say that this is the black tote?
Yes.
And the other box then, is that the gray tote?
Yes.
Okay. And when you swabbed it, can you tell the jury exactly what you would physically do to go about doing that?
So in this case, I took out the item, I examined the item for the presence of any of that observed reddish-brown staining, which I did see. I then took a swabbing of that staining, tested it for blood using those 2 chemicals. It indicated the presence of blood. It had also been requested that there be contact DNA testing performed, as well as latent print examinations. So I swabbed the handles of the tote, trying to get the general palm area where somebody's might be pressed up against it, while avoiding any areas that latent prints might find useful.
Okay. Is there a possibility of problems if you go out of sequence in terms of who tests what first?
Yes.
So is there a preferred procedure, meaning DNA first or fingerprint first?
Serological examination, so any of your biological fluids are tested prior to sending it to latent prints.
And why would that be?
Some of the chemicals and testing that latent prints uses in their examinations can interfere with our testing.
And is that the procedure that was followed here?
Yes.
Do you see that latent print? I mean, I know you don't do latent print analysis, but do you see that latent print dust on the exterior of this exhibit?
Yes, that's what that would appear to be.
That was not present when you did your testing, correct?
Correct.
So that would have come subsequent to your analysis?
Correct.
Okay, I thank you. Now, you can have a seat. I'm going to try and put this back. Just so we're clear, there had been some prior testimony rather, that there's some different tape that's used by the crime laboratory than, for example, this red evidence tape. Which tape is your tape?
My tape is this red evidence tape you can see right here on the side with my initials right there.
Okay, so that would have been you reclosing this box after you completed?
Correct.
And do other divisions of the crime laboratory use different types of tape?
Yes, as that tape says impressions evidence on it, I would presume it was from the latents.
Okay. So different parts of the laboratory use different material tapes so that they can document that, is that right?
Yes.
Now, without sounding perhaps like a silly question, if there was blood in your swabbing from inside of the tote, that was from the inside that you swabbed or the exterior?
The inside.
Did you swab the exterior?
The exterior, the handles were swabbed for contact DNA.
But any of the other portions on the exterior of the tote were not swabbed?
Correct.
Why not?
I didn't observe blood on the outside of the tote.
If you had seen a reddish brown stain on the exterior, would you have also swabbed that?
Yes.
Okay. So in this case, would it be fair to say you swabbed the areas that you made an observation of what could potentially be a biological fluid?
Correct.
Okay. And you indicated both the gray and the black tote had swabbings that revealed blood.
Correct.
Okay. Now, in addition to the totes, you referenced some clothing items. Can you tell us, with respect to those clothing items, I'm going to show you, I believe it's, if I may, Your Honor, I will have to go behind the witness. I'm handing the witness 1.15. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, State's Exhibit 1.15 is the clothing items that I tested in this case.
And would it be fair to say that those are the items that are on your report as 36A, B, C, and D?
Correct.
Okay. And did you process those similarly to how you just described?
Yes.
And those are the same items themselves here in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, if there was a lid of a container that did not come into contact physically with, for example, in this case, the issue is the portion of somebody's human remains, how would DNA deposit on a substance? Can you explain that for the jury?
DNA can deposit on a substance either through contact DNA, skin cells, or through the biological fluid. So a biological fluid would have to come in contact with the item.
So if there was no physical contact, then DNA would not transfer?
A biological fluid would not transfer, yes.
Okay, so biological fluid, not transfer. Can you explain how friction of a cleansing wipe across the surface of, for example, a tote lid or handle might impact your ability to recover DNA?
So DNA, both skin cells and biological fluids, are a biological material. For instance, like food, they would degrade and break down over time. And depending on the circumstances, the conditions that that item has been left in, would depend on how quickly that DNA would be expected to break down or disappear from an item. If an item has been cleaned, wiped, if it has been left outside, exposed to UV light or rain or other elements of the weather, then this would cause the DNA to, if it was present, to break down and disappear faster.
Okay. And if you were to be told that some of the items in this case, for example, the tote was recovered in a condition where it was outside in a wooded area where there was precipitation and full exposure to the light, would that affect your ability or your likelihood to recover DNA?
Yes, it would.
And how would that have impacted it?
As I said, it would cause any DNA or biological material that was present to break down faster.
And would that be, for example, more likely or less likely with contact DNA versus blood?
It would be more likely with contact DNA simply because there's not as much of the genetic material, the biological material there, as there is with a biological fluid.
Now, with respect to the clothing itself, if somebody had been dismembered and bled while wearing their clothing, would that deposit potentially blood DNA for you to retrieve?
Yes, that'd be likely.
And if that clothing had been removed from the body and recovered subsequently, would that DNA still be present in the blood found in the stains?
Depending on how the clothing was exposed to any elements, then yes, it would be possible to get the DNA from the blood.
If it was in a black plastic garbage bag, would that have helped you recover blood DNA? Preventing it from being exposed to those elements I just described.
Yes, as long as it's not exposed to too many of the external elements, then yes, it'd be more likely to get DNA from those items.
If it was unseasonably cool for that time of the year, would that also assist?
Yes.
Why?
Like any other biological material, keeping it cool, as you would in a refrigerator, will help to maintain the longevity of the material.
Now, with respect to the next laboratory report, this is 1.73. I'm referring to, again, this far margin side where it references 64, 65, 66. Can you see that on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. What samples were tested in conjunction with your May 24th, 2023 report?
I tested DOFS item 64, a cutting from a futon. DOFS item 65, batting from a futon. Item 66, swabbing of a floor. Item 67, swabbing of floor. Item 68, swabbing of floor. Item 69, swabbing of floor. Item 70, swabbing of a den wall. And item 71, swabbing of northwest bedroom floor.
Okay. And I know you already testified that those samples, being the floor and the wall sample, were in fact a presence of blood. Were any additional samples the presence of blood other than those?
Not in this report, no.
What about the futon batting and the futon cover?
I apologize, I thought you had mentioned those. The chemical examination of the futon mattress cover, the futon batting, the swabs from the floor, and the swabs of the den wall indicated the presence of blood, and the swabbing of the northwest bedroom floor failed to reveal the presence of blood.
So would it be fair to say a swab was submitted that could have been blood, but after you tested it, it just wasn't?
Correct.
Okay. Is that sometimes the case?
Yes.
Officers will submit items to the laboratory for analysis, and you just determine whether it is or it isn't, right?
Correct.
There's no favor or benefit when you do your analysis. It's chemical, correct?
Yes.
Now, with those items that were recovered and tested, you also documented this separately. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you do it close in time to when you're actually performing the analysis?
Yes.
And if you had done different stages or received submissions at different times, would that be an indication as to why there's more than one report?
Correct.
Okay. So did you receive all the items in this case all at the same time?
No.
Okay. Was that over a period of time?
Yes.
Okay. So just so we're clear for the record, I don't know if you can see that date up there. Can you see that date for this first report, 1.72?
Yes.
What date was that?
Well, the report was issued on May 4th of 2023. The evidence, including the knife, clothing, and storage containers and lid, were submitted to the lab on January 6th of 2023.
Okay. And why the delay?
Other processing had to take place on the items before I received them for my testing.
Okay. Did the lab have to process them in as well and receive them?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second report we said, I believe, is that referenced in 1.73?
Yes,
The
the,
date?
the report date is May 24th, 2023, and the evidence, the cutting and batting from the futon, the swabs from the floor, and the swabs from the wall were submitted to the lab on May 17th, 2023.
Okay. And now with respect to DNA analysis, can you tell us, when you received this case, had any DNA analysis been done by a different technician than yourself?
Yes.
What had been done and by whom?
The testing of the bloodstain cards labeled head, right leg, left leg, torso, and torso spleen had been tested by forensic biologist Michelle Shepard in order to ensure that all of the body items were related to each other. and she also did a parentage request in order to identify the body.
And those happened independent and before you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And subsequently, were you able to simply document that on your report as having happened?
Yes.
Okay. Did you rely on that as well, simply to do the documentation portion?
Yes, and I used her testing, the DNA profiles that she had obtained from her testing, as a known reference sample for comparison to the evidence items that I was testing.
Okay. And what items did you compare her testing that reflected it was Mindy Mebane Kassotis to the items that you had?
For DNA testing, I tested a swabbing of a blood stain from the gray storage container, contact DNA swabs of the handles from the gray storage container, swabbing of blood stain from the black storage container, contact DNA swabbings of the handles on the black storage container, the general swabbing of the knife blade, and contact DNA swabbings of the knife handle and sheath. I also tested the cutting from the futon.
So I'd like to start with the storage container, that being item 37, the gray tote. Were you able to compare and recover DNA from that storage container?
Yes.
What were your findings?
The DNA obtained from the swab of the blood stain on the gray storage container contained the DNA profile of one individual, matching the profile of Mindy Mebane Kassotis.
Okay. You said one profile. Is that always the case?
No, there can be what are called mixture profiles where there's two or more individuals that have contributed to a DNA mixture.
And when you say that it matched the profile, do you also do frequency when it comes to that?
Yes.
And what was the frequency with respect to the comparison of her DNA on the gray tote, the known sample versus the swabbing from the gray tote itself?
So the frequency in which the DNA profile obtained from the swab of the blood stain on the storage container, the gray storage container, item DOFS item 37, is approximately 1 in 300 septillion. And for reference, it goes million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, septillion.
Okay. There are 3 zeros for each of those, right?
Yes, septillion would be a 1 followed by
I think we heard testimony earlier. It's okay.
24 zeros.
Okay. And at that time, did you also compare that known sample to something else that you found to be analysis that you were able to render?
Yes, I performed a comparison to the swab from the futon mattress cover.
And what were your findings?
The DNA obtained from the swab from the futon mattress cover contained the DNA profiles of at least 2 individuals, the major DNA profile matching the profile of Mindy Mebane Kassotis, and the frequency of which that DNA profile would be expected to be seen in the general population is approximately 1 in 300 septillion. And due to limited data, a partial low-level DNA profile, no conclusive determination could be made as to the donor of the remaining DNA profile obtained from the swab from the futon mattress cover.
Now, you said that there are oftentimes mixtures, is that correct?
Yes.
Given that this was a futon mattress cover, one would presume that people sit on that, correct?
Correct.
Would the fact that another resident of the dwelling sat on the same futon potentially deposit DNA?
Yes.
So do you have any way of knowing who that second DNA sample could have been?
No, I could draw no conclusions to that.
Okay, so if this was an Airbnb that had been inhabited over a several month period, would that further complicate the ability to figure out who that second DNA low-level contributor might be?
Yes, it could if multiple individuals have come in contact with the item.
When you have more than one person that can potentially come into contact, what do you do to try and limit or make any findings?
Within the case, we can request the known reference samples for any other involved individuals or any elimination individuals, anybody that was known to come in contact with the item. And at that point, we could attempt to make a comparison.
In an Airbnb, if there had been numerous residents over a period of time, would that be difficult to accomplish?
That would likely be difficult.
Now, with respect to item number, well, let me ask one also other question. If I was a resident in the dwelling, and let me withdraw that, if the allegation is that Mr. Kassotis was present inside of a residence along with Mrs. Mindy Mevin Kassotis, would it be unusual to find his own DNA on that same futon?
No, a person's DNA is likely to be on something that they come in contact with on a general basis.
Thank you. Would you have been able to tell potentially if that DNA was the blood versus some other type of DNA, meaning cellular?
Within these profiles, since there was the presence of blood and the testing was taken directly from the blood stains themselves, it is likely, based on the fact that a full profile was obtained, that that DNA profile was from the blood. But it is also possible that there are skin cells or other biological materials that are also contributing.
And now, with respect to the black tote, that being item 38, and 63D, the handles, and 34, the knife, and then the sheath of the knife, can you tell us what your findings were on that?
PCR amplification procedures, so complete DNA testing, was not performed on item 63C, the swab with the blood stain on the black storage container, item 38. Item 36D, the contact DNA swabs of handles on the black storage container, item 38. Item 63E, the general swab with the blood stain of the knife blade, item 34. And item 63F, the contact DNA swabs of the knife handle and sheath, item 34, due to an insufficient amount of DNA detected. What this means is that human DNA was detected. It was not enough DNA for us to move forward with our testing. At low levels of DNA, we would not expect to be able to obtain a usable DNA profile from our testing.
So there just wasn't enough DNA there?
Correct.
And with respect to, I believe you said item 37, did you include that, the gray toed handles?
The PCR amplification procedures were not performed on item 63B, the contact DNA swabs of the handles on the gray storage container, due to the absence of quantifiable DNA. So in that case, there was no DNA detected.
So there was no DNA at all on the gray handles?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you've discussed the sufficiency, meaning having enough of it. Can you tell us, does DNA have a timestamp? Can you determine when DNA was deposited somewhere?
I cannot tell when DNA has been deposited somewhere or how fresh a stain is. However, like all biological material, the longer that a biological fluid or DNA sits on an item and is exposed to external elements, it will begin to degrade, and you would not see a complete DNA profile.
So would it go from first full profile available to potentially a less capable profile, meaning not as complete, and then potentially gone completely?
Correct.
Okay. And also, you, I believe, just testified, you can't tell when it's deposited either?
Correct.
Just one moment. I have nothing further.
Mr. Weinstein? Thank you.
Sorry.
Good morning,
Good
Ms.
morning.
Ransom. I'm assuming it's still morning. I didn't check before I came up here. My name is Doug Weinstein. I represent Mr. Kassotis in this case. Well, hello to you too. I just have a few questions for you. Regarding States Exhibit 1.24, that is your June 26 report, your DNA analysis. There was a discussion regarding, with the state, regarding that 2 individuals' DNA profiles were found on the swab from the futon mattress cover. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Okay. And one of the individuals you identify as Mindy Kassotis,
correct.
and the other individual you did not identify, correct?
Correct.
Can we see that? You can see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Of course, I don't know what we're seeing, because I can't.
You're welcome to look.
Thank you. Okay.
Would you like me to turn it?
No, it's okay, thank you. Can you see this portion here where it says, "It may be possible to draw conclusions"?
Yes, I can.
Would you read that can you read that paragraph?
Yes, it may be possible to draw conclusions on all contributors from item 72, swab from futon mattress cover, item 64, utilizing True Allele casework software. Please contact a forensic biology manager to discuss True Allele casework software analysis on item 72, swab from futon mattress cover, item 64. Adequate known reference samples from the subject and a elimination individual will need to be submitted.
Did you write that paragraph?
Yes.
Can you explain that in more plain English about what you were requesting?
So True Allele is a computer software program that aids in the interpretation of complex DNA mixtures, partial degraded DNA mixtures, and it simply aids with, in this case, where I had a minor profile that I could not draw any conclusions to, it would be able to assist with drawing conclusions. But in order to use True Allele, you would need known reference samples from any person who potentially could have contributed DNA to that item.
Do you know if the True Allele casework software was ever used, if your request was ever followed up on?
No, it was not requested.
Do you have to pay to use, does the GBI Crime Lab, do you have to pay money to use the True Allele software?
No,
Okay. So it wasn't a budgetary issue that would have prevented that from being performed, correct?
correct.
With respect to States Exhibit 1.73, which is the May 24th, 2023 report, you received packages containing, I guess, 4 different floor samples as well as a sample from the den wall, correct?
Correct. 5 floor samples, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, 5 floor samples? Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. There was an additional 4 of the samples were from something just labeled as floor. There was a 5th sample labeled bedroom floor.
Correct.
With respect to the 4 samples from the floor and the den wall, do you know if they were submitted for DNA testing?
They were.
They were. Okay. And do you know what the results were?
I did not perform DNA testing on them because all of those items had been indicated as coming from the same location. So I chose one item to begin with.
Okay. And which item was that?
I performed testing on the swab from the futon mattress cover, item 64, which was the cutting from the futon.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was inartful in my question. As far as the floor samples, what's labeled in this report, let me put this here. What's labeled in this report as sample 1, sample 2, sample 3, and sample 4. Those 4 floor samples. Did you perform DNA testing on those?
I did not.
Did anyone, as far as you know, perform DNA testing on those 4 floor samples?
No.
And what about sample 5, the den wall? Did you perform DNA testing on the den wall sample?
No, I did not.
As far as you know, did anyone perform DNA testing on the wall sample?
No.
Court's indulgence for just a moment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Anything already, Brad?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You're excused.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes, ma'am.